Let's cover Genie and NAC remote access enforcement options. Although there are a multitude of different use cases, we've selected 3 specific use cases here for demonstrative purposes. First, we will cover the unauthorized user use case. The Genie and NAC policy server comes preloaded with a built-in Radius server. This Radius server can take in Radius requests from a network access device which controls connections into the network at the network perimeter. The Genie and NAC Radius and Policy server will then validate the credentials and then send a Radius response back to the network access device. At that point, any user that does not have valid credentials will be denied network access. The next use case we will cover is 2 different compliant and authorized users who require different permissions. Here we will see compliant authorized user A. Based on various criteria that the system administrator can configure, including user ID, group, compliance status, or other information, this user can be granted different privileges than compliant authorized user B. When the Radius request is sent to the network access device, the Genie and NAC Radius policy server replies back with an attribute. That attribute can be something like a downloadable ACL, which is applied to the network access device. This allows compliant authorized user A only access to server farm A. The same process happens when compliant authorized user B connects to the network. The policy server and Radius server of Genie and NAC returns an attribute such as a downloadable ACL, which is applied to the remote access session for user B, allowing user B only access to server farm B. Of course, more granular access can be permitted in the downloadable ACL, such as access to only an individual server or even an individual service on a server, but this is a basic example of how this feature can work. In the third use case, we have an authorized user that is non-compliant. The Genie and NAC agent which is installed has actually determined that this is a non-compliant posture or an invalid posture for this endpoint. This could mean it has detected something like antivirus not installed or running or out of date, or perhaps there's an unauthorized or prohibited application that is running. These types of posture policies are important not only when employees are not in the office, but also when they are remotely connecting into the corporate network. Therefore, you want to ensure that you are validating the posture of any device that is connecting to the inside of the network. In this use case, the Radius request would be sent and the device would actually be blocked from access because the agent had reported to the policy server that there's an invalid posture. Therefore, a reject is sent back and there is no access into the internal corporate network until the endpoint posture is changed and the user has remediated. Once the posture is valid, that user would then be able to connect just like any other compliant authorized user.